I am going to this evening first of all, thank you so much for coming, and thank you to Stewards of the Coast and Redwoods for hosting us. If there's anything we need right now in this time in our country is stewards of nature. And each one of you is part of that stewardship work, and we take that very seriously and very with great privilege and honor to have you all here. So thank you. And I want to start with who we are and what we believe. At River Otter Ecology, we believe and we live that lasting change starts with very local actions. Small local actions become huge actions across the country. And our work is based on the fact that lasting environmental change starts with local actions, and local actions start with you, people. Um, we work and live on the ancestral lands of many tribes in the Bay Area, and now that we're growing nationally, we're broadening our understanding of our responsibility to the earth and to the waters. We, meaning our board of directors, our staff, and our volunteers, have been doubling down on our commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. To us, those are good words, and we aim to keep it that way. We're a tiny organization. We have two full-time and one part-time staff, and we have about 30 volunteers who help us get the many things done that we get done. We work in community and with community. We have a lot of partners from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to national state parks, Tomales High School in Marin, California Academy of Sciences, Berkeley Museum of Vertebrate Zoology, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the Marine Mammal Center, and national parks. And now we have our Otters for Waters partners in Arizona, Utah, Minnesota, and Virginia, which I'll tell you about in a little while. But first, our story begins with the unexpected return of this charismatic predator, River Otter, whose presence is a hopeful sign of healthy watersheds. It's about how paying attention to what's going on in our own local spaces can change management and change planning, and that can improve our conservation outcomes. And river otters, I mean, come on. Every time I do this presentation in a big group, I have to stop during this part because everyone is oohing and awing, and you're welcome to do that too. So otters charm everyone, and they really help us make the case for protecting the gains that we've made in cleaning up and in restoring our precious wetlands. Now, how did I get into river otters? Well, I'll tell you. I was working on coho salmon recovery in Lagunitas Creek, which is very close to the town I live on. It runs through our town. And we started seeing river otters in that creek, and it made us curious about what was going on with otters in the Bay Area. And when we looked up information, we found there was almost no information. In fact, they were considered a non-occurring species. And we knew that wasn't true because we had seen them in Lagunitas Creek. So our project started with our curiosity and our understanding that there was a big data gap in our knowledge of river otters. And it has grown from there. So why otters, first of all? Why? I mean, they're beautiful, they're fun to watch, but even more importantly, as far as ecology goes, is that they're an indicator species. They tell us that our watersheds have improved. That's why otters came back. They're making a recovery on their own. They haven't been brought here from other places like they had in so many places in the Bay Area, I mean, in the country. They're connectors between urban and wildlands, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. They're predators. Their presence can affect other species, especially endangered species. So we want to know who's in our purviews of management. They're charismatic. They're charm bombs. Look at those faces. Look at those lots of whiskers. I don't know what it is, but animals with big noses and lots of whiskers are really attractive to all of us. So when we started As I said, river otters were considered non-occurring in the San Francisco Bay Area. We started our project in 2012, and this was what the range map looked like. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife had last updated this range map back in the 1990s. And it showed that, look at San Francisco Bay Area, almost no, very few river otters were known to be there. But we had seen them way down here at Rodeo Lagoon, and we had seen them up here in Point Reyes National Seashore, so we knew they were here. And we started to gather information on two fronts. And one of those is Otter Spotter, which I'm mostly going to talk about today. And then we took a focal study area in Marin County, mostly in the state, national, and local parks. And we have been tracking population demographics there for the past 13 years. And population demographics meaning how many otters there are, although it's not really specific on the exact number, but are their numbers going up, going down, or staying the same? Are pups being born? Are they making it through their first year? Those kinds of things. And we did this all through camera trapping and through collecting scat for genetic analysis. So none of the work that we've been doing involves capturing or collaring or anything like that with the river otters. It's non-invasive. They're not an endangered species, and we really don't need to be super invasive with them. And we're happy to do it that way because we think that they have the right to not be bugged if they don't really need to be. So let's move on to my next map. So this is our otter spotter map. And what we did was set up a map online, and people can input their otter sightings through an online portal through our website. It's very easy to do, and I'm going to ask you all to do this. If you see river otters, go to our website, input your sighting. It's easy to do, and then you'll see your little dot pop up on the map sooner or later. And the same if you see a dead river otter. This is really important, and I'll get to why that's so important in a moment. But all those red crosses on the map are dead river otters, and almost probably 99% or more of those red crosses are otters hit by cars. Sadly, otters get hit by cars all the time. They're small, they dart out. They're dark, so if it's dark or getting dark, they're very difficult to see, and they get hit constantly. Um, we get about 600 sightings or more per year. And when we started, we were just in, oh, this is your area. When we began our project, we were just in the San Francisco Bay Area. But the project naturally spread, and pretty soon we were throughout California and then even more so throughout the country. So it's been a very successful and really good project. It tells us that otters are present in a particular area. What it doesn't tell us is how many of them are there or anything else about them. We just know they're present. We can't even be sure they're absent because, as you can see, some places on this map are pretty empty. That doesn't mean there are no otters there. It just means that no one has seen and reported an otter in those places. And if you look down to the bottom of the map, you see some blue dots, and there are blue dots scattered throughout. That's when people send in otter sightings, but they don't have a photo, and we don't have any way of knowing whether it's actually an otter, or if it's a beaver, or a muskrat, or a seal. We get all kinds of those, which we don't mind at all, but we have to keep our maps up to date. So I wanted to show you the map of the Santa Rosa to the coast area. And you see, what do you notice on that map? You can put it in the chat and I'll just tell you in a minute, but think about it. What do you notice and what does that make you wonder about this map? First of all, if you look along the Russian River, you see lots and lots of yellow dots, and you would expect that, right? It's the Russian. We know that it's a wonderful, fabulous river, and there are lots of otters there, as well as lots of steelhead and salmon. And so you would expect to see lots of otter dots here along the Russian River. But look at this area in downtown Santa Rosa. Lots and lots of river otter sightings in Santa Rosa. And consider a lot of people think, well, river otters, they only like pristine, wild places. They can't do well around cities. Not so. River otters do great around cities. They're very adaptable animals, and if they have enough healthy food to eat, and reasonably good waterways, they can do just fine and they do all the way around the San Francisco Bay, as you saw in the last map. So I just wanted to mention those two things first. And then after we had had our project going for about 5 years about 5 years and had collected quite a bit of data, we got in touch with Department of Fish and Wildlife and said, hey, we've got this data set. Do you want to update your range map? And they said, well, yeah, we do. So we sent them our range map, our data set, and a couple of other researchers sent in their data sets. And the upshot was this new map. And you see there's light pink. This is the old range. This burgundy color is the new River Otter range. 4,100 square miles of new otter range. And that was really important, but people are like, well, yeah, so that's interesting, but why should we care? It's nice that we know there are otters here, but why? So think about who might care where river otters are. And there we go. So first of all, we at River Otter Ecology Project do a lot of advocacy. We advocate for wildlands corridors and for good development practices. And part of understanding why and where corridors are important in wildlands is knowing what species might be using them. So we know, for example, that river otters travel beyond rivers. They don't only travel in rivers, although they do use them a lot, but they can travel overland too. So if there are places in between waterways or in between rivers that river otters want to go, they will go there. So we need good corridors for them to get through. Restoration managers, look at all this land around the San Francisco Bay that's now known to be river otter territory. When people are working on restorations, they're often for endangered species like salmon, like marsh harvest mice. And when a big, strong predator that eats a lot, like river otters do, comes into an area, restoration managers need to know about it so that they can plan accordingly. Wildlife habitat managers like state parks, like national parks and local parks need to understand what species are in their areas. Transportation authorities like highway crossings. Now, we have been working on the Highway 37 crossing, and also we're trying to work on a crossing in Marin where river otters are getting hit all the time. And that is why I asked you to make sure that you input your sightings of river otters hit by cars into our website because we use that information, we share it, and we use it to help make highway crossings safer for all wildlife, really. Toxic spill response teams. That's one that I didn't really think all that much about until the Costco Busan oil spill happened in San Francisco Bay about, was it 10, 15 years ago? River otters were not considered a species there, so they weren't looking for them. But river otters were seen on at the headlands in Marin eating oiled wildlife. So nobody had a plan for them. They didn't know they were there. The wildlife rehabs were not ready to take them. All of a cascading effect happens if you don't know there's wildlife there. So again, wildlife rehabbers have to understand where the otters are and prepare for them. Teachers. Now, we have lots of data. We have collected lots of data for a long time, and I have used it extensively teaching elementary, high school, and even college students. It's really handy to have this data, and river otters are so much fun to study and learn about that the students react to those lessons really well. And finally, other researchers. The research that we've done through the years has supported other people who are researching otters in different areas. So those are some of the reasons why we would care about where river otters are. All of this work, oops, all of this otter spotter work began to spread across the country. All of these yellow dots throughout this map that you're looking at here are otter sightings. We didn't really try very hard. Excuse me. We didn't try too hard to spread this out, but it happened organically, and you can't, well, I can't see that. Hang on, let me put that up. Oops. 1 minute. I'm trying to move my screen thing along, but I can't. But as you see, we have lots of sightings, especially on the East Coast, some in the Great Lakes area, and then we're gaining more of them in Utah, in Arizona, in the Chesapeake Bay area, and in Minnesota because we have partners there. We decided a couple of years ago that we really wanted to increase our impact. We have had a lot of impact in California, but we have a platform that works really well. That's our Otter Spotter platform. We've done a lot with it in California, and we thought, well, if we can partner with water protective organizations in other states, then maybe we can use our platform and the knowledge we've gained through the years to help them do the same thing using river otters as their charismatic ambassador. So we did that, and we have our 4 partners and are working really hard at supporting them. And we have some really good results from those projects so far. It's very exciting and it's a lot of fun. Now, and one of the things that we've discovered that's the most interesting of all is how urban river otters can be. And that's becoming more and more well known through the years. When we started, people were really shocked that they could thrive. This is a backyard in Berkeley. It's in a really busy part of Berkeley. Backyard, happy otters in the streams, in the ponds. I'm sure there's great fish there. In Lake Merritt, in every waterway in the San Francisco Bay Area, you will find river otters. And what that tells us is that the work that we did in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and onward has had an effect because river otters were gone from the Bay Area by about 1914. They were no longer here because San Francisco Bay was polluted, dirty. 95% of the wetlands had been destroyed. But river otters were able to come back because we had the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, restoration projects all the way around San Francisco Bay. The water got cleaner, the air got cleaner, and all kinds of species started to come back. Harbor porpoises, river otters, many other species are back now. So what is this telling us? It tells us that we know what to do, and if we have the will and the opportunity to do it, wildlife will come roaring back. And that is basically what we are all about. Now, I want to talk a little bit more today, a lot more today actually, about river otter natural history, river otters in the wild, what kind of prey species they eat, and about how they can support conservation for us. But oopsie, let's go there. But first, I want you to get a good look at river otters running along a sand dune. That's in Marin County in Point Reyes National Seashore. Otters, and I slowed this down for you because otter physiology is so interesting and their bodies are fascinating to look at up close. They're mustelids, they're in the mustelid family. They have short legs, very stocky, very muscular animals, not too much fat on their bodies. Um, and that's why they have to eat a lot. They eat about 15 to 17% of their body weight per day. Now, what they're doing here is rolling around on the sand dune to groom their fur, to warm up after being in the cold water, and also to deposit scent marks. They're very all mustelids are very scent dependent, and they get a lot of information from sniffing around and depositing scent. Their back feet have scent glands on them that help them deposit scent around. So everyone asks me, are these the same as sea otters? The answer is no. Sea otters and river otters are different. There are 13 species, 14 now species of otters in the world. And river otters and sea otters are the same family, but different species. And they look very different and they have different habits as well. So sea otters, the southern sea otter, are the ones that we see in Monterey. They're really big. They weigh 80 to 100 pounds. They're very, very heavy animals. They have the thickest fur of any mammal known on Earth, and they have those big white faces. They're the ones that you see lying on their back with their paws, sometimes with their paws wrapped around kelp. They lie in they have rafts of sea otters that you see down at Elkhorn Slough. If you go down there, you can go kayaking among them. They're really fabulous animals, but not the same as river otters, which are much smaller. River otters weigh 15 to 20 pounds-ish. They're pretty much brown all over except for under their chin, parts of their face, and along their bellies. They inhabit all kinds of water, from salt water in the ocean all the way up to pristine ponds in the mountains. They need fresh water. Sea otters don't need to ever go on. Sea otters never need to go to land, and they never need to be in fresh water. Unlike river otters, who spend about half their time on land, and they need fresh water to drink and to clean their fur to keep their thick coats in good shape. Now, river otters' coats are thick and beautiful as well, but they only have about half the hairs per square inch as sea otters. So their fur is much, much lighter. And that's the quick runaround. Here's sea otters with their favorite food, urchins. And you can see a raft of sea otters here, all hanging out together. I don't see any I'm sure there are some babies in there. I just don't see them. And here in the upper right, there's a little map of current sea otter range, which, okay. Let me go back to that map so you can get a look. So sea otters are found in Central California in the Monterey coastline, and then not again until way up in Washington and up into Alaska. So we don't see them here except for very seldom. There's a sea otter, this big kid over here. This is at Point Reyes National Seashore some years ago that a sea otter was swimming through, which I do sometimes, and was swimming around the point where the lighthouse is. And three river otters became fascinated by this cousin of theirs and went swimming out to meet him. And they didn't go too close, smart river otters, but they could not leave him alone. They followed and followed and followed until they all went around the point, and then the three resident river otters came back, but the sea otter continued on their way. Super interesting interaction. And now, because we're in January, close to the mid-January, in about a month comes the time for baby otters to be born. And baby otters are born from mid-February till about mid-April in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when they're born, they're quite dependent on their mother. See, this kid is probably a 4 month, 4 month old river otter, I would guess. And you see the mother is taking good care of her. They're very affectionate with their babies. They groom them constantly and carefully. They bring them food in the den when they're tiny, and then as they grow bigger, about 6, 8 weeks, they start taking the youngsters down to water to teach them to swim. River otters can't swim when they're born. They're very, very helpless, and that's why river otter females will make their natal dens where they have their babies and keep them for the first 6 or 8 weeks up above the water line. Because when we get those spring rains and we have flooding going on, the uh, the otters will drown if they're not safe. So the mothers try to keep them tucked away and safe. So here, this one is also in Point Reyes. This is a mother river otter. We called her One Eye because obviously she had one eye injured and you couldn't see her very well. But she can see out of the other eye, but she had a pup. And if you turn your sound up, and I'll turn the sound up too, you can hear her looking for her pup. You see that one eye. Do you hear the squeaking, chirping? That's her pup. She doesn't know where it is. There it is. Little river otter pups are very tough. River otters in general are tough. They get terribly injured and they get sick, and yet they almost always survive pretty well. And that's a good thing for them because they're kind of slow to procreate. They don't generally have pups, the females, until their second year or third year of life, and the males don't usually have procreate until they're 4 or 5 years old. So they're not super fast procreators. So for their populations to grow and for them to resurge the way they have been, it takes a while for them to catch up. And here's some babies. These are little ones, and you see that they don't go under the water. And that there's their mother with them. That's because they're too small. They can't stay underwater until they're a little bit heftier. So their mother catches fish for them and they grab the fish out of her mouth, as you see them doing here. After a while, she makes them start looking for their own food. They stay with their moms for at least 12 months and often for years at a time. And the whether they leave or go depends, a lot of it depends on how much habitat and how much food there is around for them. If the coastal river otters here on the West Coast do really, really well because there's so much food for them all over the place. Um, so good thing. We like that. Here's another mom with her pretty big babies. So these adults who are with this mom, these two that just came over the bridge, are her pups from last year. So they're pretty adult. But look what she has with her. Another little one. So adult females will often help their mothers or their sisters bring up the young. And that's what these three otters are doing. They're all helping with that one baby. And I think that year that mother only had one pup. They can have anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 even. But That year, there was only one baby there, and that baby had two helper aunties and a mom. And it was so spoiled that every time it found itself alone, it would start squeaking. It was a very squeaky little one. Pretty fun. Nice life. So river otters start following their parents everywhere and their mothers everywhere. The fathers are not involved. Once the females are pregnant, the fathers go away for actually quite a long time until the fall. But in this video, you're going to see a female bringing her two young up a really steep rock face and with the helper female behind. And this is not uncommon. The females they'll go and hunt in the ocean or do their see what they can find to eat and then go back up a cliff face like this. And they don't always make it, sadly. It is as dangerous as it looks, but they're very, very brave babies, those youngsters. They will not get left behind if they can help it. So dispersal, we talked a little about this. I'm showing this video just to show how land and sea these critters are. They're very pretty fast on land and very comfortable on land in the water. As you see, they're quite amphibious. They just go right along. It's wonderful. They have all of their toe, all of their all 4 feet are webbed. They can close their nostrils and their ears when they go underwater. They have a nictitating membrane on the outside of their eye that helps protect them underwater. River otters have really thick whiskers, vibrissae, they're called, and they're very, very sensitive to movement in the water. So when river otters are hunting in dark, cold water, they can sense the movement of fish or crayfish and chase them. So reproduction, how do we get all those baby otters? This is actual mating happening. And I chose this video because this is a pretty calm, quiet mating. Lots of times there's a lot of fighting and screeching and going on, and the females don't appear to love mating. But mating it goes on for several days at a time. And the river otters will mate in the water, and then they'll go on land to rest, and they'll go back and mate in the water again. After the female is impregnated, the egg does not attach. It just sits in the uterus and for about 10 months, and it's called delayed implantation. Lots of marine mammals have it. We're not entirely sure why river otters have delayed implantation. For other marine mammals, it's often to ensure that the young are born when there's food availability for the mothers. It's not really the case with river otters, and we think it may be a leftover adaptation that they have from millennia ago that's just never changed. But in any case, they do have delayed implantation, and in starting next month, well, hopefully they'll start having some youngsters. This is a long video, goodness. Okay, you get the idea. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, this one is fascinating. Here's a little pup, and that's one-eyed mama going down there. And then look at this male otter in the back. That's a male. You can tell it's kind of hard to tell male from female otters in general. Um, Males tend to have thicker necks and they're a little bit bigger than females, but size is not necessarily it's not necessarily always that way. But uh, I lost my train of thought. Uh, this female had a pup, and generally, males are not allowed in the vicinity of females with pups until the pups are about 8 or 9 months old or more, or seven, yeah, 8 or 9 months old. This was in July, and that pup was probably 5, 6 months old at the most. And here came a big male otter to hang out with her. And we're fascinated by that. And our best guess is that that male otter is an offspring of that female from the previous year and had come back and was visiting. And so this guy hung out with one-eyed mama and her baby for a few days or a couple of weeks maybe, and then carried on probably to look for more females. But that's of all, we have 13,000, 20,000 river otter videos, and this is the only one where we've ever seen a pup and with an adult male. So very interesting. Some of what we look at in our videos is behavior. And this is just egregious cuteness. I have to show you more mother and pup videos. Super playful. Even adult male river otters will play together very happily, and they retain their playfulness throughout their lives, which is nice. So a big part of the reason that we do this work and we use river otters as our ambassadors is because if you see something like this, it hits people in their gut. You know, we have this visceral desire to support and protect wildlife and habitats. So there really couldn't be a better ambassador than river otters for watershed protection. Now, a little bit more about their life story. I mentioned that otters get injured and ill, and take a look carefully at this video as it continued, and you'll see that this otter has a pretty substantial, has had at one point a very substantial injury. You'll see, and this is a mother otter. You see, she's missing her back left leg. And I don't know how that happened. We weren't we didn't get any videos of her when she had that injury, but the injury is completely healed. And we have watched her for several years now, and she can do everything any other otter can do. Otters are tough. All wildlife has to be tough. They just do. So she is a tough gal. And this is a photo from this is actually from McCarraker State Park, I think. And this otter is an old girl. You can tell she's old by how pale her fur is and how her head just looks. She looks like an older girl to me. And I also got some photos of her mouth open when the photographer was able to get her mouth open when she was eating, and her teeth were completely worn down to nubs in places. And that's what happens with a lot of wildlife. As they get older, their teeth degrade and they're not really able to hunt like they were. And as time goes on, they don't survive. So this was some years ago. This was 5 years ago. And I doubt this old girl is still around anymore. but it's one of my favorite otter photos because I just look at her and I think, wow, you have done a great job. And a lot of the otters that she's also very pale. A lot of the otters that we see in coastal areas can be slightly paler than other otters, but this one was an unusually pale river otter. Now let's talk about what they eat. Hmm. River otters eat pretty much any meat they can get their teeth around, ranging from aquatic insects all the way up to large birds, even sharks. They eat gray smoothhound sharks and they eat leopard sharks. They're extremely fierce predators in the water. Here's an otter at Drake's Beach in Point Reyes National Seashore carrying a guitarfish, a kind of a ray. And guitarfish are great prey species for otters because they are found in slow-moving bays and in the near shore in the ocean. They're really big, they're pretty slow, and they're easy for otters to catch. River otters will eat anything that they can eat that is easy to catch. So guitarfish are one of those species. Here's an otter in Contra Costa Canal with a huge catfish. And once they get their teeth around a fish, river otters generally do not let go. They almost always win those fights, including with the small leopard sharks. I saw the only time I have ever seen a fish escape a river otter once it was caught was a large male coho salmon a couple of years ago. I was on a salmon walk on New Year's Day, and I came across a fight going on between a large male river otter and a large male coho. And the otter actually had that coho in its claws, in its mouth, and was shaking it and trying to kill it. And the coho was doing the same thing with the otter. And after a couple of minutes, the coho got away and it shot down the creek, and the river otter was disappointed in his meal that day. However, we later saw in the creek, possibly that otter or possibly another one, I'm not sure, but we saw an otter not far from there chowing down on a spawned out female. So I thought, okay, that female has laid her eggs. She's done what she came for. She's going, this is the end of her life cycle anyway. It's okay for the otter to take that one. It's my feeling, because normally when I see bright, beautiful coho getting predated, I'm not a happy girl. But otters have to eat too. And here's an otter with a steelhead. That is a big meal for an otter. She was taking that fish back to an area where she could eat it in peace. But here come her adult pups, thinking, well, maybe we can help eat that. At some point, when the pups are big enough and are able to catch their own food, river otter females make them catch their own food. They no longer let them just take fish out of their mouth, and they get pretty insistent that the otters catch their own. So more about what they eat. One of their favorite foods in the world is crayfish. It's very interesting that uh, ecologically between the relationship between crayfish, other fish, and actual fish, and river otters. Otters will eat crayfish like potato chips. They crunch them. They're super easy to catch. They'll swim back and forth down the Contra Costa Canal with their whiskers running along the sides. And when they find a crack where there's a crayfish, they'll pull the crayfish out and eat it. In some areas where we've done studies, especially in Martinez, river otter diet was almost completely full of crayfish. It was amazing because I guess they were finding so many, they didn't need to try to catch anything else. Very interesting. Now, crayfish, the one in that otter's mouth, is a red swamp crayfish. They're an invasive species. They eat everything in the creek that's small enough that they can grab, including tiny coho salmon. So while river otters do predate on coho if they can get them, or any other kind of salmonid or any large fish, they're also eating some of these, a lot of these crayfish that are catching tiny fish and not allowing them to grow up. So it's a pretty complicated interaction going on in there, and one that we would love to study more intensively. But here are some of the many species that we have found that otters eating. The one at the top left is a carp. It's a big carp head and skeleton. The bottom one is the very invasive green crab, which we have found otters eating many times. Top right, mole crabs, which are found all in just under the sand all along our coastlines. They're really tiny, and it kind of surprised me, but we almost always found them in river otter scat when we were studying it. And then the bug at the bottom is a dragonfly larva. And then in the middle, strangest of all, one scat that I pulled out was completely full of ladybug exoskeletons because apparently ladybugs cluster like monarch butterflies cluster to stay warm in the cold weather. And these ladybugs were found by a river otter who ate them all. And we found all those skeletons in their scat. This is a little bit grisly and sad, but river otters are avid munchers on all kinds of water birds. We have seen them and have video of them taking gulls, coots, grebes, scoters, cormorants, ducks, even pelicans. Amazing. Pelicans are huge birds with a 5 to 6 foot wingspan, and river otters, I have actually seen them capture pelicans several times. And we did a little study on it, which I'll tell you about. What about the pelican? So look at that pelican in the photo with the otter. The otter, it was a dead pelican. The otter was dragging it along. And look at the size of the heads, pretty much the same size. And what happens, only happens, river otters predating on brown pelicans, only happens in two places in the world that we know of. And both of them are in Marin County, California. One is at Golden Gate National Recreation Area at the Headlands, Rodeo Lagoon, and the other one is Abbott's Lagoon in Point Reyes National Seashore. So we knew about this happening at Rodeo Lagoon, and that was known even before we started our project. But back in 2018 and onward, we started noticing that river otters at Abbott's Lagoon in Point Reyes were starting to do this as well. They were capturing and killing pelicans, and they do that by either drowning them, grabbing them by their feet, and then when they put their beaks down, they drown them. Horrible. I've seen this happen. Or by attacking them in a group and drowning them and killing them that way. So, why pelicans? A couple of reasons. Pelicans don't really have any predators. So, especially at a place like Abbott's where this was a new behavior, but they weren't expecting it. They would settle down and roost at the lagoon, and the otters would come in like little submarines, very stealthy, come up and kill them and drag them away. They make a huge meal for an otter. So a lot of times otters will just eat part of the meal and then stash the pelican somewhere in the water, which kind of sometimes sort of works, but sometimes the coyotes have been watching and will go down and take the pelican and drag it to land and eat it. So, very interesting behavior there as well. Here's more otters being their fierce selves. See, there are two sides to otters, very cute, very cuddly, very fun and playful, but also very, very fierce predators. So did a little bit of a study on this in Point Reyes National Seashore a few years ago. And because we were interested in whether the otter predation on pelicans would have an effect on the aggregate population of the pelicans in the lagoon. And we found that the otters took 73 pelicans during our one season study, which was about how many? Let's see, it was about June through November, something like that. And it did not have any effect that we could tell on the pelican population of the area. So thank goodness for that. But we also really wondered whether the river otters would learn to avoid the pelicans. And during that particular study period, they didn't seem to learn anything, and they were still being predated at the same rate as they had been for the past couple of summers. But interestingly enough, the year after we did that study, the pelicans started avoiding the river otters and flying up and dispersing when the otters came swimming around them. So they have been learning. We'll see what happens. We're still keeping an eye on it, but we don't have the funding for a long-term major study like that. It's difficult to get study money for things for non-endangered species. Uh, Again, still the otters are being predated at Abbott's Lagoon, where we did the original study. Rodeo Lagoon, the otters were not predating pelicans for some years, but in the past couple of years they have been again. So we would love to do a study there as well to compare. Social life. I think I mentioned that river otters are very sociable throughout their lives, and they love to cluster together. They're also pretty happy on their own too. They're very adaptable. And here's Contra Costa Canal, which some people see Contra Costa Canal and say, "Oh, degraded, horrible." We look at it and I think river otters look at it and say, "Oh, look, there's all this stuff for us." So they use these pipes. They're really good at using human-mediated uh, habitats. Oops, let me go back. They use these pipes for many reasons. They use them to stash their young. They use them to nap, to eat, to hide, and they use them to get between waterways as well. So I actually am always amazed at how well and how many river otters can fit into one of those pipes. And I'm always amazed at how well they're able to use human-mediated environments. Very, very cool animals. And there they go. It's kind of like a clown car. And this is it. I've showed this for a couple of reasons. One, because you can see how beautiful and chocolatey brown their fur is. They're beautiful, beautiful fur. These are males. This is a group of male river otters hanging out and playing. And a lot of times, if you're kayaking or if you're out in a lagoon or a pond, you'll see a group of 10, 12 river otters. That's always, almost always, a big group of males. Um, and they're friendly. They're not very territorial. During mating season, when the females are in estrus, they sometimes will fight and they can fight very fiercely with each other. But on the whole, they tend to avoid each other if they don't want to be around other river otters. But if they do, then like this, they can have fabulous times playing around in the sun. And you can see that all of these river otters are really fat and healthy. I think this video was taken in Corte Madera, and they're just in really good shape. There's lots of prey for them to eat around here. This one is interesting. These are two groups that's not mother and pups, but they clearly know each other. The sounds they're making, I don't know if you can hear them. Let me try to turn it up. those sounds that they're making are curious and they're contact chirps and they're sort of the curious grunting noise that they make. So that these two groups are not related, but they're kind of neighborly. They appear to know each other pretty well, which is sort of typical of otters in the same area. Now, as far as predators go, river otters have a few. For baby river otters are pretty helpless. That's why they stick with their moms. So cats like this bobcat or dogs or mountain lions, bears, coyotes would all be a danger to small pups. And you can see that here with this bobcat. So that mother river otter isn't having it. She's sending that bobcat away. And river otters are not afraid of pretty much any animal. And you'll see this as we go on with the interactions. And here's her two pups, and they're pretty big pups, probably 3/4 grown, but the mother is still very protective. And river otters do tend to be protective of each other and of their pups, of course. So I love this whole series of photos. This is at Abbott's Lagoon again. And this river otter group had been catching coots and stashing them in the lagoon there. And the coyote, Wile Coyote, was watching. These animals are neighbors. They know each other. They generally leave each other alone. But this coyote was really encroaching and he was pulling coots out of the water that the otters had stashed and taking them away and eating them. So after a while, these otters had had it and they started coming after the coyote. And here's the coyote grabbing another coot. And it looks like the one otter has something in its mouth. I'm not sure what that is, but then here's the matriarch of the family chasing that coyote away. And I've seen this many times. I've seen the coyotes and the river otters interacting as pretty wary neighbors. The coyotes will go after a river otter if they're in a pack and the river otter is by itself. But in general, if it's just single otter as and single coyote, the coyotes will run away because otters are so fierce and what they have incredibly strong jaws. And if that coyote got caught by an otter, it would not fare well at all. So they're careful like all wildlife is. They don't want to get hurt, injured. This one I love. This one was taken at Jenner, right at the mouth of the Russian. And Coyote is, I mean, the coyote, the river otter had brought that big fish up onto the rock. And the bald eagle decided it would share that meal. And it looks like the river otter is going to fly off and grab the eagle out of the sky. But that did not quite happen. Now, I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes and give you time for questions, but I do want to talk a little bit about community conservation and stewardship. I want to change that title maybe just to stewardship. This is at, I think, Heather Farm Park, and this guy is doing exactly what he should do. He's sitting on that bench, he's got his dog in his lap so it can't go after the otter. I'm not even sure he knows the otter is there, but the otter was fishing in that pond, which is stocked. If ponds are stocked, you're going to have otters if they're in the vicinity for sure. And he's just holding on to his dog. Good job, letting the otter do its thing. That doesn't always happen. So part of what our volunteers do is talk to people along the trails and along the paths about good, safe wildlife viewing and good, safe fishing, especially. This is egregiously fascinating because that's a huge striped bass, and that otter has pulled it right into the thing. That's pretty strong. Amazing. But this one is at Heather Farms too. And this otter had caught a fish. They'd been stalked. The otter caught it. She had pups across the way in the pond that's not used by people so much. There's a fishing pond for people, and then there's a pond where there's no fishing. So she had her pups over there, and she was trying to take that fish to them, but people were really excited, of course, to see her, and were kind of in the way of her getting back to her fish. So you can see how she's using a lot of energy and a lot of concern to bring that food back to her pups. And that's part of what our volunteers do when we go out on the trails and along the ponds and talk to people. We have some handouts to help people be better photographers and better wildlife viewers. So you see, she finally made it across and back to her youngsters. And this is what I call the ladder of fun. They have these ladders all, all the way along Contra Costa Canal. And the canal workers use them, but so do the otters. They're like play toys for the otters. They hang out on them, they play on them, they use them to get back and forth. Here they are grooming. It's very typical for otters to groom each other. They have to groom a lot to keep their fur in good shape, to keep their oil glands at the base of each of their hair shafts in good shape so that they stay warm in that cold water. And check out those big claws. River otters have very sharp, very tough claws too. There they go. And this I wanted to show you for two reasons. One, because river otters really are all about water, and our project is all about water. So I love these two photos by Karen James, one of our fabulous photographers. And if you look at the back feet of this one on the right-hand side, you can see those little dots on the pads of their paws. Those are you can see little round dots on there pretty well. Those are their scent glands that they have on the backs of their paws. And this is not an otter. This is a badger. Badgers are in the same family as river otters, but as you can see, they're very different. But one of the things we love so much about camera trapping is the captures that we get that aren't necessarily otters, but they're fascinating. Look at this beautiful badger. You seldom get to see them for such a long time at such close range. Beautiful, beautiful animal. And we got that because one of our camera trappers was out and he found the badger hole and he said, "Oh, I'm just going to stick a camera here for a little while and see what I get." And this is what he got indeed. Gorgeous. Nice. Mm. A little bit shy. And this is fascinating. Now, you all have lots of bears in Sonoma. In Marin, when we first started our project, we didn't know of any bears in Marin. But over the years, we started getting one bear and then more bears. And we have several that we know of who have come down from Marin. But this was 2023. This was the first bear that we ever got on our video. And a year or two later, a year later, we got two young cubs, not little, but young bears on our video. So we knew there were at least three bears in Marin, and now I think there are more. But there's an organization called North Bay Bear Collaborative that has sprung up and is studying the recovery of bears in Marin. It's fascinating. And this I just put in because this is one of the most interesting videos I've ever had. Take a look at you see a brush rabbit down there on the right, and then right next to it is a pretty large gopher snake. And when I saw this, I almost fell over. Get that bunny attacking the snake. So when I saw that, I didn't really know what was going on. I had never heard of a rabbit attacking a snake before. And I got in touch with one of my friends who studies rabbits, and they said, "Oh yes, this is not that unusual. The rabbit probably has a lair nearby with bunnies in it, and the snake will go into that lair and kill the bunnies." So she was getting rid of the snake. Um, I went, as soon as I heard that, I went down to that site to take a look around, and I did find what looked like a rabbit lair. It was lots of rock cairns, and with bunny rabbit scat all over outside of it. So I think that may have been where the lair was. Very interesting. All right, I'm going to stop sharing in a minute, but a lot of times people want to know, how can we help? How can we support wildlife? How can we support our waterways? How can we support everything? You're already doing it, and thank you so much for doing it. And if you would like to sign up for our newsletter on our website, we'd love for you to sign up, riverotterecology.org. Um, but most of all, I know we're all hearing how much we need to advocate now, and we do more than ever. We need to vote for conservation candidates, join in community conversations with your legislators. Unfortunately for us, we're all having to get really used to doing that now, but it's more than ever needed. Attend meetings if you can and speak at them if you can. Stand up. We're all learning to stand up more than we ever have before, and I'm really glad that we are. If you'd like to volunteer, we have field volunteers and outreach volunteers. You can certainly be an otter spotter. If you see an otter, go onto our website and input your sighting. We will thank you forever. And throw us a fish if you feel like it and are moved to. You can chip in through our website. Um, and I want to thank you so much to the Coast and Redwoods stewards. I really appreciate being here to talk to you tonight. And our wonderful photographers, many of whom are from Sonoma. Bill Barrett is from Sonoma for sure. Trish, I think, is. Debbie Fire is. Ah, yes, lots and lots. So thank you for being here. If you want my information, I'm sure it will come up. You can either screenshot it or um, I'm sure you'll get it. All right, stop share. Okay. Thank you all so much. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Thank you so very much. I did see one come in the chat, which was, can the river otters get avian flu after eating water birds?
Oh, that's a really good question, and it's one that we don't know the answer to yet, but I suspect the answer is yes. And I suspect that it's yes because mink can definitely get avian flu. So if we find a river otter carcass that is unexplainably dead, like not hit by car, then we get it tested for avian flu. But we have not had a positive test yet. Fingers crossed on that one. That's really a bad one.
I had a question about the otters that we see along the coast, both in Bodega Bay that are in the brackish water and then out in the seawater. And can they just mostly stay in the salt water? Do they have to go back into the fresh water? Like, what's their relationship with the saltiness of the water?
The river
The
otters,
river
not sea
otters.
otters. Yeah, river otters are fine in salt water, but they need fresh water to rinse their fur. They need to keep their fur in good shape, so it needs to get rinsed in fresh water. And that's partially why you see them so often along coastal waterways where their rivers come down. You can almost always find them there.
What is the average lifespan for our Bay Area river otters?
Oh, I didn't tell you that. It's usually I do. It's about 10 or 12 years. And in zoos, of course, they can live much longer than that because they get good tooth care.
What are the characteristics and behaviors of the American river otter Are the characteristics of the American river otter the same as other otter species like the Eurasian otter?
That's a really good question, Maddie. Great question. And the answer is long and complicated, and I only know some of it. So, Eurasian river otters are the ones that are found in England and in all over many, many places in the world. And the major difference, they're the closest genetically to our North American river otters, but the major difference with Eurasian compared to North American river otters is that our river otters have a seasonality to their births. They give birth during a season, but Eurasian river otters can give birth any time of year. But one thing that they have in common is that they can all recover really, really well from being close to extinction in various places. And some of you may have heard about the recovery of river otters in the UK. It's been tremendous, much like it has been here in the Bay Area. So again, they're ambassadors for waterway conservation.
Someone who lives on Sonoma Creek is asking if there's a good time of day to see river otters.
Every time of day is a good time to see them. Through on our camera traps, we have seen them at every hour of the day and night, but we see them most often during the morning and the afternoon hours. A lot of times in the afternoons, they'll go and nap for a while in the middle of the day.
Someone is asking if they can find the updated range map that you
Yes,
featured.
yes. Here, I'm going to put my website in here.
And is that the best place to start for doing people's own observation, spotting, and photo surveys?
Oh, I'm looking. So the updated range map is on our website, and if you go to Citizen Science Otter Spotter, you can find the range maps um, for doing your own observation and photo surveys. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Alexandra. Can you pop in and let us know? Do you mean specific surveys? I'm not sure what she means,
I,
but in any case, you can find where river otters are on that map. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's Alexandra here. Was just trying to see, how we can help and, the best locations to do so. I know there are some
Yeah.
locations named, um, but yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, take a look at the map on our website, and if you go to the tab, then you can click on the tab, and something will come up that says enlarge a map, and you can do that, and it goes to the ArcGIS map, and then it's a more interactive way of looking.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, I didn't know what to call that exactly, so I listed everything I could think of, like observing them or whatever,
Yeah,
to mark on the website and everything.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
there's a question if they're territorial, like giant river otters.
Oh gosh, no. Thank goodness. Giant river otters are super territorial, and if someone else comes into their territory, they chase them and kill them. Whereas our North American river otters, not very territorial. If a stranger comes in, they're more likely to be fascinated by it than attack it. I would say the difference might be as if it's a female with young and a male comes around, she might, but I have never actually seen that happen.
Any other questions from anyone? Well, someone who signed off early said, I love river otters even more now.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's a good way to end. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for making time, Megan, and to all of you. And I hope you'll visit the River Otter Ecology Project website. And we will record this and put it on our YouTube page. And I'll send it out so people can see the recording as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everybody have a great evening, And I'll sign off now. And please get in touch with me. I didn't even put my info up, but it's Megan at riverotterecology.org.
Is it okay if I send it out when I send the thank you to everyone?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. I will do
And
that.
we are doing our training soon, our spring volunteer training. So think about that and sign up if you're interested.
Great.
Thanks.
And that's based in Marin.
That's it is. The training is in Marin and all of our field work is in Marin. So we do have some Sonoma folks on our team though. So
And we have volunteers from Marin who come here, so we
yeah,
share.
we
Excellent.
like to share.
We do. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you. Bye.